one of my best qualities, and I don't mean this in an egotistical way, is I just did my own thing, and I just got focused.
Excited to have Stuart join us this morning.
Thanks for having me. This is pretty cool. I've never done this one.
Look forward to getting to know you and your story a little bit better.
Yeah, it's everyone's got a story, I guess, but when you leave another country and come over here, come to the US to try and make a mark, not egotistically, but like try to make progress. You know, it was very intimidating when I first came over, for sure.
So I'd love to start, where you're from, where you grew up, and then we'll get into.
Yeah, so I came from a town. If you knew Australia or knew any cities, Melbourne's one of our southernmost cities, our sort of sporting capital of Australia, and Sydney being one of the one most people would know is about a 1 hour flight, pretty much sort of north and east. But I grew up on a dairy farm, about 3 hours drive north of Melbourne. Lived on near a river called the Murray River, so all of our irrigation, all that sort of stuff. So all of that area is mostly dairy, bit of beef and sheep in the more arid land. But I was really exposed to just the outdoor life very, very young. Loved sports. Played. It's a tiny little town, by the way. It's only 2,000 people. Very small school, and loved sports. And out of the blue, Mum and Dad decide, well, they'd never played golf before, they're going to go get some lessons. And that was a 2.5+ hour drive away to get a lesson from anywhere. And that's when I started picking their brains on, like when Mum would come home. Dad was a left-hander, so he was useless to me, teaching me anything. And so I'd pick Mum's brain and she'd say, okay, so today we learnt about the stance, or today we learnt a bit about the backswing and where the club starts and grip. And, it wasn't long before I, tag along out and play golf. And all three of us were awful. I mean, we were dead set beginners. Now, that was when I was 14, so I didn't start until then. Now, the slight advantage I had was I didn't probably develop many huge bad habits as a young kid. Young kids starting at 5, 10 with golf equipment back then that was so heavy, and it was cut down Mum or cut down Dad's clubs. So I had a little bit of size and strength to me enough to be able to swing Mum's clubs. So it feels a million years ago that I did that. But it feels like yesterday. And I remember my first real 18 holes, I shot like 120 something. And I was pretty much addicted. Within 12 months of really that was when I knew something was coming, and the game sort of just expanded. I was playing other sports at this time. I was playing Aussie rules football until I was, about 16. Then I had to go to the next division, which was probably senior level, and I really wasn't, that was going to be a big step. And my coach, even when I was playing football, would give me games off to go play club championships and play golf. So he must have seen some form of like, hey, we're cool, you go off, do your thing. And it was it was just great to get outdoors, play this game. But at the time, truly I wasn't very good, and I didn't really get better until 2 or 3 years later and getting into teams. But those infancy years of being on the farm and mowing patches of the paddock or the field, the pasture, and I'd hit into our little backyard. We had a little, not even 2,000 foot home. So I'd had to never hit the house. That was the golden rule, no breaking windows. And mowing these patches and hitting into that was just instrumental. I can still remember times that, in rain like today in our recording, we're going down to South Florida, we've got this pitter-patter UK-style rain, and I'd be hitting balls in Mum's flooded backyard with a rain jacket on, chipping balls through the water like the Caddyshack scene. And that was really where I got addicted to the sport, that sort of stuff in those first few years.
So 14 was the first time you played, and about 3 years later you started, developing, getting better. Is that when you thought, like, maybe I can do something with this?
Well, I get asked that question, when did you know you were good or whatever? And I never really can answer that, because I never really, like, even if let's go advance a bit further, and I was now 18, and we had 17, 18, I'd got to the level where I was one of the top 10, 12 juniors in the state. And we're talking about not a big state, maybe the size of Florida. And, I was barely getting into the team, and that's where I met my coach, Steve Bann. And that's where we struck up a relationship, for forever and a day. And he was instrumental in those infancy years and getting rid of some awful habits I had. My first coach was brilliant to have when I was in that, just pre-Steve. But, I looked up to a lot of guys. There was guys like Robert Appleby with the elite level of junior golf, were dominating, winning so many things, and other players. And then there was a big spooky level of national golf tournaments at a national stage, and there was no I'm going to be the best, I'm going to be as good as Greg Norman, or I'm going to go to America, I'm going to do this and that. It was just like, okay, download. And maybe one of my assets was I was able to put the blinkers on like a racehorse and just absorb stuff, do stuff, focus on my own little world, insular, get very insular with that. And that's when I sort of started to progress through my teens. Either side of my 20s really was the big boy stuff for me. The elite amateur events in Australia. I never got selected for Australia to represent what we call the Eisenhower Cup. But then moving on to, hey, could I turn pro? Could I make a buck? You know? And that was pretty intimidating to know that, because I had no qualifications. I had no degree or, you know, so it was sort of like, I went into it not even thinking, what if it doesn't work? But I had no inclination that, oh yeah, I'll cruise through, this will be fine. You know, I'll be doing a podcast in South Florida in 25, 30 years time, you know.
So when did you make the decision, like, I'm going to go for it?
Well, it was lucky we had these little events that were just starting up, this fledgling pro. So I went to Q School that year and finished in 1991, I think it was. End of 91. End of 92, I think. You might have to Wikipedia one. I can't remember. So I come second. So I get my card and I'm going to go play. And, you know, it was big and scary because I was very homesick from Australia. So having to travel, you have to just leave Australia. There just wasn't enough for me to play. So do I go to Asia? I didn't really like it there. I didn't really do well there. It was so hot. And the greens had grain like we have in South Florida or much of southern US. And I'd never even seen grain before. No idea what it could do to a golf ball. So I sort of tried to come home. We had this fledgling tour that was, I think it was $20,000 total purse, Australian dollars. So you're talking 15 to 20,000 US, depending on our rate. And, you know, I went out and I dominated the series of them. It was 4, 5, 6, 7 of them, and I won most of them. And my coach said, look, winning's winning. What you've done is only in Australia, but winning. That connection with the sport, connection with the moment. And even driving away, going with your little trophy and your little check, that's huge. That you can copy paste that to anywhere else in the world. Of course, the level will be high. So I went to America at the end of that year. It was actually end of 94. And thought, okay, we'll go to Q School. I have to go to all the stages. Stage, 1, 2, and 3. And just got through one. I was in Tampa in a playoff, like a pile of guys for a bunch of spots. And then finally got to final stage and had the worst score of the round. Played at Haines City, not too far out of Orlando, only just down the road from where I live now. So tight golf course. I grew up on a tight golf course, and I'm like, okay, I can do this. But the pressure got to me, and I shot like 80-something the first day and was last, 160 guys. Okay, I said, let's go. Come on, loosen up. Let's do this. Let's play. And then I ended up, shooting a low score. 6 rounds in total has to be. Final day, the 6th day, I had to shoot like a under par score, and I shot just over par. So over par gave me a consolation prize. It wasn't a tour card, and in a way, thank goodness, because I wasn't ready and I wasn't good enough. But I played the Nike Tour. It was the Nike Tour now the Corn Ferry, and that was my real exposure to holy cow when I got out there. I mean, I won my first week, but it was hard work. I had to learn so much about your rough, so much about your travel habits, so much about American aggressiveness on the golf course, how aggressive you guys played. I was used to these firm, bouncy greens and balls kicking left and right, and I'm shooting 4 under going, man, I play good. And I watch a guy like a Jerry Kelly now on the Champions Tour, Chris Smith and these guys, just shooting 5, 6 under half the time, nearly, every round they were playing. I'm like, come on. So that was a real learning period, and I really got to connect with, the Americans were so welcoming and bringing in this like little youthful looking Aussie kid, and it was really cool part of my life to go through travel the US at that time of my life.
What are some of the toughest challenges you feel like you faced that you'd want to share?
I would say really then just professionally was just the intimidation of going to a country I knew nothing about. We have a lot of TV from the US. So we're very Americanized in many aspects in Australia. so we're always, like most people or countries, you're looking in at America. America produces stuff and it goes out. So I had a rough idea, but the golf courses, man, soft, generally slow greens, thick rough around greens, thick rough off the fairway, different style of bunkering. We were more tactical playing in Australia, and the courses were much more demanding. And so 2-3 under every day over there was, playing to the middle of the green, with an 8-iron wasn't acceptable anymore. Now it was, come on, go for it. It's 4 or 5 yards from the edge. You really have to go for it. So I spent a lot of that first year learning and just watching how good the competition was. And now, back then, they only had 5 graduation cards. And to show you how young and naive I was, Jerry Kelly comes up to me the last tournament of the year, and there was only 5 cards available. Like I mentioned before, Jerry, Chris Smith, and others were playing so well. I just ho-hum through the last event of the year, and Jerry goes, dude, I think you've got enough money. I think you've got the last card. I've come all this way, and I'm not even into it. And Jerry, he's all into it for me. And that was when I got to the PGA Tour and sort of ducked away the first year on the tour, 96. Couldn't handle it. I had to birdie the last. It was just such hard work, and back to Q school I go. So that was another big professional test. And then by 97, I had my first win, and then I was off and running. But certainly 98, when my wife died in middle of about the summer of 98, that was personally the hardest part of I was a young guy. We were both out there. Things were on the up. Renee was caddying for me previously. She's like, man, I can't do this. This is not good for us. So I got caddies, and it was all looking good, and just out of nowhere, no longer somebody I dearly loved was no longer with me in an instant. And that was the first time I I remember going back to Australia, in those early days, weeks, just thinking, I'm done. I'd been living, breathing this development of golf and obsessed every day I played golf or some form of golf, And now I was like, couldn't give a shit. I'm done. That's like pulling a chip out and changing chips. That not scared me, but I couldn't believe that was the real conversation in my head, because it was real, as real as anything. And I remember somewhere in the first week the PGA was coming up, so it was certainly late in the season. It was over, I think, at Sahali. And I thought, you know what, the best thing to do when something rocks you, they say, is dive back into your work. And that was my trade. And I did go. I went to play. I don't really remember anything about it. I remember having a press conference. I remember being, obviously still freshly gutted from my life's change. And I'm sure I must have looked very interesting from the outside, but I was so into, my problem, my grief. But I thought, I've got to play golf. This is what I do. Just, can it distract me enough? And it was a long time before I had a normal night's sleep. Didn't cry myself to sleep. Months and months and months and months. So that was really, really tough. But at the same time, I looked and I thought, you know what? I tried to justify what's this mean in my life? And I was like, you know what? I'm a young guy. I've got a lot to offer, whatever that means, either personally, professionally. I believe that, there was a future to my personal life with a person in the future. I believe that wasn't going to be as gutted and as bad as it is now. And that's what happened. And my life did take a personal turn for the better in the coming year or two. And Ashley, my kids now, and here we are. And she was unbelievably patient through that period. So that was really tough for me, really tough for her in a way, because she could easily just gone, you know what, this guy's, come on. And that's what life dishes out. It dished it out very young for me, but I'm thankful for her family that I'm in contact with, and that is a special part of my life that I'll never forget.
So moving past that, you said you just dove back into your work, and it took a while, but it just gets easier through time. Or what advice do you have for someone that goes through? That's
a great. You said that time. Time will heal. Time will heal. Well, that sort of meant jack. You know what to me? It meant nothing. But they were right. It is a generic, boring, hollow statement, but it is true. And what I found was, yes, I would have lived in a cardboard box with her if I could have clicked a finger, I dream of Jeannie, you know, done that. But I'm like, no, come on. This is not the real thing here is the world keeps spinning, the sun keeps coming up, sun sets. I got friends, I got family, and I know they're trying their best, and I've got to understand that there's not much they can do. This is sort of my thing. I can dish little bits off to other friends and family, and it's just going to be hard work. It is. I remember at the funeral saying I felt so daunted by my future, the task ahead. I used the analogy, I said, it was like I'd been given a beach to look at, and I was told by life to count every grain of sand. Come back to me when you're finished. And I'm like, what? Like, just overwhelmingly burdened by a loss, and then what was the future? But, you know, Dory, just keep swimming. That is it. Take one day at a time. Some days felt like 27 hours. Some days felt like 2 days. Some days were sort of more normal. But I found time was the greatest healer, and then expression and communication with the friends and family around you, and understand that life doesn't just whack you in the ghoulies out of nowhere to just wreck you. It's just to test you. You know, we'd all like to be tested gently and build up to our skills. Sometimes you don't get that. You have to get a whack in the chops straight away. But time, that saying, you know, time will heal, is true. What I found was time allowed me to lock away that portion of my life and look at it like a book on the shelf. I could go to it when I wanted, and I could look at it without being gutted, like it was in a special part of my hard drive. But it is, time heals, and does take a lot of focus. But I always know there's something better coming out of something that feels shitty.
From challenges to, let's talk about some good things that happened, some goals you accomplished that you're most proud of.
Yeah, I think, when I came over here to America, America's obsessed with winning stats. I mean, I've never seen stats up the wazoo on like everything. And I come over here just daunted by, watch ESPN. And, I was just, one of my best qualities, and I don't mean this in an egotistical way, is I just did my own thing, and I just got focused. As I got older, I probably lost a bit of that edge. I got more, life got in the way, and I just had the ability when I was younger, in my 20s, to just put my blinkers on and go. But winning's winning, right? It's great. And I look back, and I remember going to Tiger's house. This was a long time ago, way years ago, 15 years ago or more. And, he's won, I don't know, I'll make up the number, 40, 50 events by then, who knows. And he had trophies everywhere, obviously. But he had a couple of empty spots left, shelves, and I sort of turned to my coach at the time, and I was like, we walked out the door, I'm like, geez, only got a few trophy spots left. What's he planning on doing, not winning? Well, he just, hands them off to family and just moves them through the system. But I always thought, and you had guys like Ernie Els, and Ernie's much more mellow, but, he'd party, and winning for him he was one of the greatest winning golfers of all time, and certainly this modern era, and he'd party like crazy. Tiger would be like, ho-hum. I was a ho-hummer. And I look back, and I'm like, oh man, I really should have celebrated that more. But really what I worked out was the winning was a very small, fleeting thing. It was emotionally, it was a very small, celebrate, in your mind, and you're holding the trophy and you're smiling for the cameras and all that. But it took me a long time, into my 40s, to work out it was the journey to the top of that particular week. Being the last guy to drive out of the golf club at night after doing media, something like that, was just this cool, like, man, I did it. I beat everybody. But it was really, I worked out later, it's the life's trip to get there. Because I play 25, 30 events a year, what I did when I was starting out. If I won once a year, we're talking a 1 in 25 chance. It's not a real good thing to get you out of bed every day, that you're going to win. But the process I worked out was where the awesomeness was. It wasn't in the winning. And I think that's what Tiger was all about. He was brilliant at going, I am going to back nine. Give me a chance on the back nine. I'm going to chase this down. If I get an opportunity, that's what I want. I want the juices to flow. I want to see if it can happen. And that's it. And he did it very well. But I think that's where I look at it now, my journey on that. What
do you think are some things that separate the good from the great?
look, talent, you could say talent, physical and mental. There's no doubt some people have a greater skill of making their body move, and we're talking about golfers here, it can be many, many sports. And mental talent and that discipline, that is the biggest asset when you're trying to go to at the elite level of any sport, top 50 in the world at something, or top 10 or 1, it is probably the mental skill. I look at me now and go, well, I mightn't have the physical skills that I had or the speed I had when I was younger. I'm okay with that. I'd like to improve on that. And I think we're listening to Bernard Langer about a year or two ago, dominating the Champions Tour and, way past his best, but in a way he's playing better than he ever has in some parts. He just said, you know what? I get out of bed every morning. I know I'm not going to hit it as far, but I truly believe that I can find ways to get better. And that's the challenge every day. If you're not the young cow in the paddock, now you're the old bull, is knowing that, what can I do better? What can I do today that may make a difference? Or the illusion that makes it a difference, but I will get there. And that's the skill I think the great players have. Tiger's gone through the ringer and back in his life, and he's still got it, and his body's not always there, but then it is, and then he capitalizes. So I think having that youthful exuberance when you're older is vital to keep that, find that, and let things go. Let the crap of the past go. And I think the best players, I look at guys like Jim Furyk, doesn't hit it very far. You look at him and think, oh, come on, Jim Furyk, what a player. You just look at his stats, phenomenal. Zach Johnson doesn't hit it very far again. Whatever, Zach, will get it done. Matt Kuchar, same way. These are the guys mentally I look at and go, they're at the elite end. Their talents are good, like many other players, but they're elite. The way they see themselves, the way they see opportunities is that's what gives them that longevity in the sport.
How does it feel to have people look up to you and be a role model for so many people?
Well, I don't know. I still find that a little bit uncomfortable. I don't know. It's a bit strange one because I don't look up to other athletes and go, oh, I want to be like him. I certainly see athletes that present themselves very, very well and others that don't. So I get the difference. But I never was I get asked, did you idolise Greg Norman and all this sort of stuff? I said, yeah, I knew who Greg Norman was. But I looked at Greg Norman as like this godlike figure, and there was no way I could ever pertain to be anywhere near as good as him. Obviously, I never was, but I got up there in the world scene, but not number one in the world like Greg was for, 6 years. So I never had that, I'm going to be number one, I'm going to be the best, and I'm going to be like him. I was just plodding along. So I'm very humbled by when I had a junior golf foundation in Australia, and we had these young kids. Now these young kids are 10, 12 years plus gone by, and I see them and I'm like, man, they've progressed. I'm very proud of that the sport came to them, and that will be something that they may hold forever in their life, be a golfer. But when I play a tournament, say down here in South Florida, at Honda's a good example, being my first victory, I had a young kid came up to me in the late 90s, came up to me now 20 years later and said, oh, you signed a ball for me back, and now he's 30 something, and I'm like, what ball did I use? Oh, it was this and it was that. I'm like, holy cow, this kid was 8 or 10 when I saw him last, and he remembers that, or she remembers that. And that really, and they have their own story, and I can never take that away from them, what that may mean, or what the parents said. Hey, little Johnny, he never started. So I think that's cool, and I'm a bit sort of, oh, okay, But I get starstruck, certain people I might see, so I get it.
What's anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up that you want people to know something about you?
I don't know. I'm really thankful for the industry I bumped into. Sometimes you can question your path or what direction you're on or what happened, and I'm very fortunate that I got to be good enough to play the sport on a world-class level. I'm very fortunate that America was here to nurture a golf tour that I was able to have a long career on, and now a Champions Tour. I'm 48 and a half. I feel like a kid, How old are you? I'm 7 and a half. Well, 48 and a half. I've got another year and a half for the Champs Tour. So corporately, I've really enjoyed meeting so many. I know more about America geographically than I do about Australia, and that's sort of very strange. But I am always happy to hear people come up and tell me cool stuff that I might relate to, or something that I might have been involved in, because it pieces together my life, pieces together people, influences, relationships. For instance, I just caught up with someone, Jerry, from Sanderson Farms, the tournament we have it was a month or so ago now. I hadn't seen him this year. I caught up, had dinner with him, and those are the connections that ultimately I've worked out that mean the most to me, the human interaction. And I was good at avoiding that when I was younger, but as I've got older, I'm really enjoying the interactions with people. So I just, I'm a husband, father of 2 teenage girls that, if any of you listeners out there, mums, dads, you got teenage girls, I'm getting battered with all sorts of stuff and stresses of being a parent, and they've got 2 younger boys, and they're so different, and I know all that time period's going to fly by. And if you're in and around and you see me and you listen to this podcast, tap me on the shoulder, say hi, let's have a chat. I won't bite, I promise, but it's great to be here.
Well, it's great to have you on today and learn a little bit more about you, and true champion and tremendous success, and
Thanks, Chris.
grateful for you stopping by.
Thank you.